What is going on, everybody? Welcome to rounds 2 and 3, the part 2 extension of my most recent mock draft. Make sure you guys go back and watch that first round so that this makes sense as far as what trades were made, some of these picks swapping around, as well as what players are left and what teams drafted who in the first round. Also, please do hit that like button down below and consider checking out my Patreon if you want access to the full TFG Draft Insider package with access to my full draft board with profiles on over 600 players this year, exclusive film breakdowns, and 7-round team-specific mock drafts on the way as well. So that's patreon.com/ThatFranchiseGuy if you want to check that out. Now, let's get into it. The Cincinnati Bengals on the clock to start day 2. We're going to grab Austin Jackson, a fringe first-round prospect, a guy that I would prefer to sit for a year. Maybe, he beats out Bobby Hart, maybe he doesn't, but definitely a good value. I do like his upside, and the Bengals offensive line, the unit they're rolling out there, is just not acceptable, especially when you're talking about bringing in a rookie quarterback in Joe Burrow. Then the 34th pick, the Indianapolis Colts. We're going to take the ever so controversial Jake Fromm here to come in and develop behind Phillip Rivers for a year or two. Now, Jake Fromm, to me, is one of the most unfairly scrutinized players in this entire class. No, his arm talent isn't elite, but now it's like consensus that the guy's a 5th-round pick. Are you freaking kidding me? I still have a fringe first, second-round grade on him. Yeah, he might not have the craziest upside, but I see a guy that could be a top 15 to 20 quarterback in the league. He's very safe with the football, but he will take those risks as well, and you got to keep in mind that Georgia's offensive play calling was, let's just say I wanted to pull my hair out watching the amount of screens and runs they had on early downs that did not put Jake Fromm in very advantageous situations. I think he senses pressure well, is a really good point guard, it throws off platform really well. I think he does a lot of things really well, and I think he's unfairly scrutinized for some of his weaknesses as well. Indianapolis is one of those teams with a great surrounding core, with a young developing defense, a team that can put themselves in great position to compete for Super Bowls, not just this year, but in the next 3 to 5 years. Jake Fromm can be an absolute asset, whether you've got Phillip Rivers there, whether he's a bridge starter, whatever it may be. He's going to be very cheap here on this second-round contract and give you a ton of flexibility as a guy that I do see as a potential starter. No, he's maybe not ever going to be a top 10 elite quarterback, but hey, you don't have to give him a contract extension at the end of the day if you don't want to. So that's definitely the most time I'll spend on any of these picks, but I feel myself defending my liking for Jake Fromm a lot. So the 35th pick, the Detroit Lions, going to grab Ross Blacklock, my 3rd interior defensive lineman in this class. This Detroit interior defensive line has fallen apart very quickly. This is something that Patricia and these Belichickian coaches value a lot, are these kind of 3-tech guys that can 2-gap a little bit, and Ross Blacklock's a really good player out of TCU, so a great fit, great value there for Detroit. Then with the Giants, with the 36th pick, I believe this is what we did in our last second-round mock, but I'm going to do it again. Tyler Biadasz, doubling up on offensive line, really starting to put a, do I dare say, elite surrounding core around Daniel Jones. Doesn't quite have that number 1 wide receiver yet, but the offensive line would be pretty damn good here with Andrew Thomas, Tyler Biadasz. Got receivers, you got Saquon. You can't do a whole lot more for a young quarterback in year 2. Then we've got the Chargers at pick 37. Going to go interior defensive line as well. Justin Madubuike. There's a kind of a cluster of interior defensive linemen. I think we're going to see a run at the top of the second round, if not the end of the first, because there is a drop-off after about 6 guys in this class. So Madubuike, one of these well-balanced interior guys. The Chargers need this. They did sign Linval Joseph, but the depth there I'm just not a fan of. Jerry Tillery was miserable. Hard to rely on him in year 2. You hope he can be better, but they definitely need guys that can play right away on the interior. Everyone needs 3 or 4 of those guys. The Chargers currently, I would say, have 1. So let's get the second guy in here in Justin Madubuike. Then the Carolina Panthers at pick 38. So we moved down and grabbed Kenneth Murray. We're going to stay defense here. I think they've got some good weapons there for Teddy. some things to kind of figure out on the offensive line there, but they do have bodies. So I'm going to stay with the defensive side of the ball, really focus on that side for this draft. And then in the future, in what is a bit of a rebuild, then we can kind of start to look at the quarterback and the different pieces around him. But for now, Antoine Winfield is the pick. Safety, a huge need here in Carolina. Winfield is just an incredible playmaker, a great athlete, just instincts, can do it all. His tape reminds me of some kind of cross between Eric Berry and Tyrann Mathieu, just the way he plays everywhere and the plays he makes, does everything super well, and it's not like he's got some athleticism questions. So the only thing there is injury. You hope he can stay healthy, but I love this player and this fit. Miami at pick 39, another safety off the board, and it's going to be Xavier McKinney. So they traded away one Alabama safety in Minkah Fitzpatrick. Let's bring in another one here in the second round. Not the athlete that Minkah is, but a similar type of player who thrived a lot in that slot position, the box safety at Alabama, but definitely has those instincts to step up and play free safety as well. Huge need for Miami. After Minkah was traded away, they just released Rashad Jones, so a big need and an excellent value. Xavier McKinney, a fringe first-round player. Then the Houston Texans, Marlon Davidson, interior defensive lineman out of Auburn. Another sort of fringe first-round guy that they're able to get here with their first pick in this draft. So as awful as the DeAndre Hopkins trade was, you at least get a first-round-ish caliber player. Just trying to, lighten the blow for Texans fans a little bit. I know that was a tough one. But quite frankly, the interior defensive lineman here after they let DJ Reader go is inexcusable. The only guy they really have right there right now is J.J. Watt, and he's not a true three-down interior guy anyway. So day one starter here, Marlon Davidson, a perfect scheme fit in this 3-4, can play that 3 technique, and you can probably find a nose tackle later, or it might already be on the roster. That's a little more of a replaceable spot. Then the Cleveland Browns at 41. Now there has been just a ton of tackles fly off the board. I know a lot of Browns fans are going to want that left tackle filled here. I think you can actually get that in the 3rd round. There's a player there at a huge need in the free safety position, Ashton Davis sitting there. You remember 2 years ago when Demarius Randall was actually good here and had really good playmaking instincts and made an impact at free safety for this Browns team when this defense was really coming along? Yeah, Ashton Davis can be that guy on day one. He's a great athlete, made a lot of plays at Cal. Plug him right in there at free safety. You got Carl Joseph as that box safety. You got a nice little duo there in Cleveland at a position that was a pretty big weakness last year. Next up, the Jacksonville Jaguars. So we traded up for Jeff Okudah. We landed AJ Epinesa. Kind of similar concept to what we're doing with the Carolina Panthers. Kind of punting on offense. Let Gardner Minshew and that unit kind of figure it out. Let that offensive line sort itself out. It's got some young pieces. Kind of let that all play out. Figure out what your true needs are next year. I don't hate their wide receivers either. We're going to grab a superb scheme fit. Another fringe first-round pick here. Trevon Diggs, corner out of Alabama. You have just reinvigorated this defense. You've got 2 corners in there in a year where you lost Jalen Ramsey and A.J. Bouye. This allows DJ Hayden to kick back into slot where he's played some of the best football in his career here in Jacksonville. And then you beefed up that edge position as well. Start to get some of that identity back on this defense. Coach Doug Marrone would love to have these pieces back, try to get this defense back. And Diggs is just the press man, cover 3 corner supreme. Really nailing this pick, in my opinion. Then the 43rd pick, the Chicago Bears. We're going to grab A.J. Terrell. Quite simply, this secondary has not been the same. This defense as a whole has not been the same for the last couple years as Bryce Callahan and now Prince Amukamara is gone. Yes, that pass rush is incredible, but part of what made this defense 2 years ago one of the best of the last decade was they had some really competent defensive backs there as well, and that's falling away. So I think corner is a massive need for the Bears. And A.J. Terrell, an experienced player coming out of Clemson, just like Trayvon Mullins last year, can come in and start day one, just as Mullins did for the Raiders. Then we got the Colts at 44. We're going to be able to get DeAndre Swift here, the number 1 running back in this class. We'll see if he falls this far in real life. It only takes one GM to value that running back position. I like Marlon Mack, but he's a guy that is going to be a free agent after this year. I probably wouldn't pay him. Why not get DeAndre Swift, who is an upgrade, a better receiver out of the backfield, more elusive, Phillip Rivers loves throwing to running backs, and DeAndre Swift could be an all-pro, like legitimate, like top 5 running back in the NFL right away here. What a perfect fit with this offensive line and Phillip Rivers. Tampa Bay at pick 45. This is a bit of a luxury pick, which is weird to say for Tampa Bay, but they've done a really nice job filling out this roster. I look at this defense. In the secondary, they got a lot of youth that I don't really need to replace. Sure, you could look at interior defensive line, but that edge rush position opposite of Shaq Barrett, definitely a question mark right now, especially with Carl Nassib leaving in free agency. But I say luxury pick because Terrell Lewis is the guy here. Really high upside, bendy, explosive pass rusher out of Alabama. Looks the part as well. If it weren't for the injuries, this guy would be a first-round pick. It's pretty simple. So swing for the fences here. If he stays healthy, you got a really dynamic duo there with Lewis and Shaq Barrett. Now you do have Jason Pierre-Paul there as well, who has injury questions himself. So it's kind of a good fit between Lewis and JPP. You should have a good quality number 2 edge guy. Then Denver at pick 46, Devin Duvernay. We're going to double up on wide receiver. I've done this before. I'm going to do it again. So we got Henry Ruggs. You got Cortland Sutton as that true number 1 guy on the outside. And then you're going to take Devin Duvernay, plug him into slot with Noah Fant there, an improved offensive line this offseason. Ooh, Drew Lock, if you can't figure it out here in year 2, we know that you're not the answer after giving him this much help. Then Atlanta. Very easy pick here. Bryce Hall just played that cover 3 press man corner at Virginia. Did have the injury that knocks him into the second round here this year, but I think he's a perfect fit here in Atlanta. Can basically replace Desmond Trufant for Gus Bradley in this defense. It's their biggest need for sure right now, so pretty easy pick. The Jets at 48. This is where Denzel Mims is going to come off the board. To me, this is about where Denzel Mims should go. The upside is clear, but I think the first round hype on him is off the rails. Playing in the Big 12, where that speed was able to show up a little more. Big 12 receivers, to me, still don't have the best track record translating in the NFL. He's a good route runner, but I didn't fall in love with him in that regard. His ball skills are really good. I do like Denzel Mims. I just am not on board the first round hype train, especially as a guy that didn't break out till his senior year. You're really looking at a dominant Senior Bowl against a bunch of crappy corners, to put it lightly, and running fast at the 40 time that has pushed him from a guy that was a 3rd to a 4th round prospect all the way now up into like the top 20. It's just a bit of an overreaction. He's definitely climbed up for me, but into this range, mid to early 2nd round, not the 1st. And this would be a great spot here for him. I think he could actually have a really good career for the Jets with Sam Darnold as his potential number 1 wide receiver. We've seen a lot of 2nd round picks come into the 2nd round, obviously falling out of the 1st, and become really good all-pro types of receivers. Then we got the Pittsburgh Steelers at 49. This is going to be the Justin Herbert pick. I mentioned in my part 1 that I'm not thinking about Justin Herbert until the mid-2nd round, really. I think that of him as a prospect, I think he's going to be incredibly raw. You basically need to call a perfect game and lay everything out for him, because to me, looked good at the Senior Bowl throwing against air, looked good at the Combine throwing against air, but when the tape comes on, the pads come on, and it's 11 on 11 in real-time football, I just was not impressed. A first-read quarterback, by definition, accuracy was sporadic. He throws beautiful balls at times, sometimes on the move, and then sometimes would just sail balls against wide-open wide receivers. Now, put him here in Pittsburgh, learning behind Big Ben, a team that is one of the better draft and developed teams at every position in the league. I can't think of a much better spot for Justin Herbert to sit and learn. Then we got the Chicago Bears again at pick 50. Gonna grab Isaiah Wilson. This offensive line's starting to get a little iffy. The 2 tackles are kind of fringy. They're fine. Isaiah Wilson is a tackle guard kind of hybrid young prospect. Doesn't necessarily have to start day 1. They do have a gaping hole at right guard, though. And I actually think Isaiah Wilson, if he's going to be a day 1 starter, I think it's going to be at guard. A little bit clunky feet to me. He is very big, but this dude's a freak, and I actually would just plug him in and start him at guard and say, sorry, bud, you're not a tackle for us. You're a guard. So that's the pick for the Bears. Then we got the Dallas Cowboys at pick 51. Going to grab Curtis Weaver. way back in January, I was mocking Weaver to Dallas in the first round. They've had a lot of success with Boise State guys. We've seen teams, when they have success with a certain program, they'll go back to it to keep picking out of the pipeline. I think that's a relevant reason to take Curtis Weaver, but he's also a great scheme fit. I like him much better with his hand in the dirt. Now, there's rumors that Dallas is actually going to be switching to a 3-4 scheme, which he's comfortable in. Either way you want to do it, he can play, either whether it's 3-4 edge or 4-3 edge, and they really need that position. I know you got Aldon Smith, I know you got Randy Gregory, but that's a lot of uncertainty. Let's mix a talented rookie in there as well, and hopefully you emerge with a starting caliber edge to replace Robert Quinn. Then the Rams at pick 52, they got a gaping hole at center. Nick Harris, I do have a second to a third round grade on him. Perfect fit for this mobile scheme. Nick Harris is just a freak athlete as far as blocking on the move. I can't think of a team that values that from their linemen more than the Rams with these moving pocket play action schemes that they run. Perfect fit. I think Sean McVay is going to have a very high grade on Nick Harris and will target him with this pick in real life, and I think that's smart. Pick 53, the Philadelphia Eagles, we're going to take Willie Gay. So this is an aggressive draft. We traded our future first to go get Henry Ruggs. We are now taking a major red flag, polarizing linebacker here in Willie Gay. Philly is a team that has gotten away with being aggressive over the last few years. That's kind of Howie Roseman's mentality. But this is a what I would do mock draft at the end of the day, and I do think Willie Gay is a first to a second round prospect. His off-field concerns, it's not like, he's some drug addict or a criminal. He just really struggled with school and kind of going through the NCAA process seems to be his issue. Once he becomes a professional football player, I think he's a pretty good kid. I think he'll be able to figure it out. Now, Mississippi State hasn't exactly been the best at producing high-character players, but I do kind of believe in Willie Gay, especially because when he's on the field, he's just remarkable, and this is a huge need for Philly. Then we got Buffalo at pick 54. I love the Jonathan Taylor fit here. I don't know if he's going to fall this far in real life, but if he does, this has got to be the pick for the Bills. You got Stephon Diggs with your first pick. Now you're adding an elite running back. He's, not maybe going to be a top 5, top 10 guy, but as an actual runner between the tackles, your traditional running back, he is a beast. He's like an Adrian Peterson, Leonard Fournette, full speed ahead, really tough guy to tackle. I think another good comparison is Derrick Henry, who had a lot of success for the Titans last year. Then the Baltimore Ravens, pick number 55. This is going to be one of those picks where the rest of the NFL is like, how did we let this happen? Chase Claypool to the Baltimore Ravens. They do need some more receiving talent. I don't know if it's going to be exterior. This is one of the most weird-looking offenses in the league. A lot of play action, a lot of running, a lot of throwing over the middle. They did lose Hayden Hurst. I think there's kind of a void to fill as far as the depth and different things they can do schematically with Lamar Jackson. I just imagine trying to cover Chase Claypool and Mark Andrews up the middle with Lamar Jackson and everything this team does. This would be a headache for the rest of the league to try and figure out. I view him as kind of a tight end slot wide receiver hybrid coming out of Notre Dame. Then Miami at pick 56. This is a great spot for Zach Bond. Starting to kind of load up on the defensive side of the ball here. Bond, to me, if he's going to be a first or a second round pick, it's going to be in one of these hybrid Belichickian coaching trees, whether it's Detroit, Miami, maybe the Giants this year. We'll see what they run. But he can be that sort of Dante Hightower, Jamie Collins role, rush the passer a little bit, drop into coverage a little bit. I don't love him making the full conversion to off-ball middle linebacker, but if he can land on one of these teams, I do think it's a great pick for one of these multiple schemes in the second or even late first, but I do think that's still a bit of a stretch. Then we got the Houston Texans. I'm going to double up on interior defensive line. I mentioned it, their first pick, they just don't have bodies at that part of the field. And the rest of their roster, it's kind of tough to find spots to replace. But that interior defensive line, to me, especially with J.J. Watt's injury questions and the fact that he's not even a full-time interior guy to begin with, I really think they got to beef up that interior defensive line. And the second round here is a good place to do it. So Neville Gallimore out of Oklahoma is the pick, who's another good scheme fit as a defensive end, interior defensive line for this team. Then the Minnesota Vikings, you're actually going to get a really good corner here in the second round. That's a great scheme fit. Zimmer loves versatile corners. That can be Noah Igbinoghene. And here's the thing. Zimmer hates starting rookie corners anyway, so why take one in the first round? Take a raw guy in the second round, let him sit for a year and learn, and this dude could be a stud. His athleticism speaks for itself. Now, he's a converted wide receiver. He's really only played, like 1,000 snaps at corner. The upside's off the charts for this guy, and this is about as good of a landing spot as I could possibly imagine for Noah Igbinoghene. Then Seattle, we are going to stick with the theme here. How about for the first time in 3 years, draft offensive lineman for Russell Wilson? Why is this so difficult? Damian Lewis to the Seahawks. Boom. I just gave you a starting right guard and a starting right tackle, or a starting left guard and a starting right tackle. Why is this so hard for the Seahawks? I don't know. The Baltimore Ravens, we're going to grab Anfernee Jennings. Some people are torn on him. I think he's just a super smart player. He'll play the run well and a perfect scheme fit. I actually think he's a very good power rusher. He's not a flashy rusher, but that's what the Ravens look for. And they need to start, re-upping their depth and development on the edge. They have Jalen Ferguson there. Tyus Bowser's probably going to be gone in a year, and I don't know how they view Matthew Judon as far as giving him a long-term extension either. So Anfernee Jennings kind of replenishing the fuel tank that is the Baltimore Ravens draft and develop engine. The Tennessee Titans at pick 61. James Lynch, versatile defensive end, not unlike Jarrell Casey as a 3 to a 4 tech. Lynch actually played edge in college. Gonna be a nice transition here in a scheme that knows how to use that skill set and has a desperate need for it. I think he'd be a day one starter as a kind of, rotational player, but would get a lot of playing time and be effective in year one. Then the Raiders, they acquired this pick from Green Bay in that trade down. You can kind of see how that trade down affects them here, as they're going to get Kyle Duggar, a really competent starting safety here. I compare him to Adrian Amos, that thumping box safety with some good range and speed at that position as well. Really secure tackler. They seem set on Jonathan Abram as a free safety. I don't exactly understand why, but if that's what my coach John Gruden is telling me he's going to play, I need a box safety to complement him. This is a very, very nice Carl Joseph replacement, almost an identical player in Kyle Duggar. Then the Kansas City Chiefs, Ezra Cleveland, can't think of a better spot. I don't think Ezra Cleveland is ready to play, but does have some upside. He's a really fluid mover, and you've got Schwartz and you've got Eric Fisher at left tackle, but both those guys, 30 plus at this point, they do need to replace those guys long term. So Ezra Cleveland, I can't think of a better player for them to get in the second round to develop behind those tackles. Then Seattle, again, I'm doing it. Netane Muti. I just echo what I said at 59. This team needs offensive linemen. I don't really see a place either where you're going to get quality. I don't know. You don't go corner here, receiver. They've got receivers. Their offensive line is just such a glaring hole when they have talent everywhere else. Double up at guard. One of these guys might not start. But DJ Fluker's not the long-term answer either way. Netane Muti is an absolute beast. Let's swing for the fences here a little bit. He's got major injury questions, but if healthy, he's one of the best offensive linemen in this entire class. And him and Lewis could absolutely beat out DJ Fluker. And hey, DJ Fluker has some experience at tackle in this league too. It's just one big competition. Let's fix this damn offensive line here in Seattle, and the rest of the league is going to have to look out at that point. Now into the third round, I'm going to really pick up the pace here, but Cincinnati needs a linebacker. Logan Wilson out of Wyoming is a beast. I compare him to Joe Schobert. Has the kind of athleticism and length to cover a little bit, even if he is a little bit stiff, but a beast against the run as well. I'd actually start to get pretty excited about a combination of Logan Wilson and Jermaine Pratt down the road. I think those two would play off their skill sets really well. Then the Redskins at pick 66. We need some wide receiver help for Dwayne Haskins if he's going to be the guy. We're going to go Van Jefferson out of Florida. Does have some injury questions. Definitely worry about that here in Washington where they have a hard time keeping guys healthy. But, Van Jefferson, if healthy, is a early second round pick, a Devontae Adams type of player. Excellent route runner, crazy release off the line of scrimmage, good enough ball skills. I'm a big fan of Van Jefferson. The injury stuff's a little scary, but if he's healthy, him and Terry McLaurin will be a great duo for the Redskins. Then Detroit at 67. Julian Okwara, he's going to play right outside of Romeo Okwara, his brother. So Romeo and Julian, the love story that we have all waited for. Julian's actually not similar playstyle to his brother at all. They were almost meant to play in this Detroit scheme in this sort of 3-4 hybrid next to each other, because Romeo's kind of that oversized defensive end edge player, and Julian's kind of more of a coverage edge rusher type of guy. Does a perfect fit sell this thing short? I think it just might. Then the Jets at 68. We're going to grab KJ Hamler. Let's open up this passing game a little bit. Young player to develop with Sam Darnold. Really explosive player. I'm a big fan of his upside. He's a guy that could be like a T.Y. Hilton that sneaks into the third round here. Then the Carolina Panthers. This is going to be the first tight end off the board. Bryson Hopkins. We've gone defense to this point, but tight end a big need here. I'm not the biggest Ian Thomas fan. Greg Olson's gone. Teddy Bridgewater is one of the shortest depth of target guys in the league. So let's give Teddy a little help here with a really good route runner. And my number one tight end in this class, Bryson Hopkins. Next up, the Miami Dolphins are on the clock. We're going to give them a starting running back here, Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Tua had to sit from the sideline when these guys went head-to-head last season in college. Well, this time he can be the quarterback that throws him nice checkdowns and he makes guys miss and fights for tough yards. Him and Jordan Howard would be a nice little combo there, a massive upgrade from the Dolphins, whose leading rusher was Ryan Fitzpatrick last year. Then the Chargers, we're going to grab some offensive line help to give some beef in front of Jordan Love for the future here. Ben Bartch out of St. John's. Can be a hybrid guy here, can compete for the tackle spot, can compete at guard, can be flexible depth, be that swing man on the offensive line. Either way you slice it, it's a big need for the Chargers. Really want to make sure that offensive line is in good shape for your new rookie quarterback, Jordan Love. Now another offensive lineman off the board here to Arizona, Matt Hennessy. We talked about the Rams liking that mobility from their center in Nick Harris. Similar concept here for Arizona. With the way this offense operates, you added Tristan Wirfs and now Matt Hennessy. With the play calling you're going to get here from Cliff, the flexibility with these receivers, and Kyler Murray with now two offensive linemen starting that are going to be on day one two of the best like screen block, mobility, like outside zone blockers as well. Oh man, and he might not start day one. He needs to add a little bit of play strength. I do have a 4th round grade on him, but this fit is just a dream for Cliff and Kyler. Then the Chargers at 73, a bit of a luxury pick. This is the pick they got for moving down from 6 to 9 to take Jordan Love. So what better position than running back to take with a luxury pick? So J.K. Dobbins going to be the pick here. I actually think Melvin Gordon's a decent pro comp for J.K. Dobbins, and an excellent 1-2 punch between him and Austin Eckler. But Eckler not really that, ground and pound type of running back. You can get that here in J.K. Dobbins. Then the Cleveland Browns. This is why I didn't panic at tackle, because Prince Tega is someone I can get here who played left tackle at Auburn at a pretty high level, was heading into the year considered kind of a fringe 1st round pick. So we were able to get some really good players at other needs, and now he's going to come in and compete with Chris Hubbard at left tackle. So we didn't panic, but we still got a really good value pick there at left tackle in Prince Tega, and kind of capitalizing on what is a deep tackle class, to be sure. I think in other classes, we'd be talking about him kind of like Greg Little last year coming out of Ole Miss as a kind of raw freak left tackle prospect. But Cleveland able to get him in the 3rd round here. Then the Colts with the 75th pick. We're going to stay offensive weapons here. Michael Pittman gives this offense a little bit of something they don't have in that outside big-bodied wide receiver. Can kind of be Mike Williams for Phillip Rivers here. That big-bodied kind of, number 2 outside threat. And then the Tampa Bay Bucks, what a scheme fit this is. I just am geeking out with this mock draft. I feel like there's so many great fits we find here, and it's unfortunate when the real draft happens. I'm not going to get this excited about a lot of these scheme fits, but KJ Hill to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They need a slot wide receiver. They've got excellent 1-2 combo there, but they do need help on the, that short slot wide receiver that can get open quick and early. The Julian Edelman here for Tom Brady. That is my literal pro comp for KJ Hill. Yeah, I'm just speechless with how great of a fit that would be, and I wouldn't be surprised if we see that in real life. Then the Jets. God, I'm just geeking out in this third round, man. We traded down from 11 to 15. We got Becton. And then with the extra pick we have, we're going to take Lucas Niang, who just might start at right tackle for this team. So turning one pick into two potential starting tackles, capitalizing on a deep tackle class, I'm getting fired up, dude. Then the Falcons, we're going to take Troy Dye. They just lost DeAndre Campbell. Another 6'3", kind of lengthy, athletic cover linebacker. Perfect replacement here, Troy Dye. The Jets with the 79th pick can start to look defense a little bit now that we've added some receivers and offensive line help here. Troy Pride is a talented corner. Bit of a boomer bust type of prospect, but the Jets need some more talent in that defensive backfield. Then the Vegas Raiders have back-to-back picks. We're going to grab Michael Onwenu. Not a day one starter for this team because you do got really good veterans there in Incognito and Gabe Jackson. But looking down the road a little bit here, not every third round pick is going to be a day one starter. You do need to plan for the future. That's what the smartest front offices are doing here with this third round. Filling holes and filling needs when you can for starters, but also planning for the future a little bit. And that's what you're doing with Michael Onwenu. And then we're going to grab Darnay Holmes. This is a Gruden grinder type of player, and they still have some problems in that secondary, even though we took CJ Henderson in the first. They've got their outside duo figured out. You do have LaMarcus Joyner, who they see as a slot corner, but after that, you need more competition, and that's what Darnay Holmes is going to bring to the table. It's a team that likes to run a lot of man coverage as well. So if CJ Henderson can't pick that up, if Trevon Mullen doesn't take that next step up next year, you've got a fourth guy in there that can really push these guys, and he is an absolute competitor that is not going to really settle for a backup spot, and definitely a Gruden type of player who could boost up this secondary here for the Raiders, even if he doesn't end up starting. The Dallas Cowboys at pick 82. We just talked about for the Raiders, it's not all about filling starters. Sometimes you need backup plans and future planning. That's Kelvin Throckmorton here for the Cowboys. Kind of an insurance pick after Frederick retired here. McGovern and Williams are kind of battling this thing out on the interior. Tyron Smith at left tackle is an injury machine. Kelvin Throckmorton, probably never going to be a starter wherever he ends up, but a guy that played center, tackle, can totally play guard. Just a really smart, steady, strong player. And I definitely think Dallas needs this sort of swing man with a lot of moving pieces, I think, on this offensive line next year that is huge for this team's success. So a bit of an insurance plan here for the Cowboys. Then the Denver Broncos going to grab Michael Ojemudia. Broncos run a lot of zone. Ojemudia very comfortable doing so. Opposite of AJ Bouye, going to compete there with the depth that they have. Corner a huge need, and Mutia is right in this range for me, third to fourth round. The Rams kind of stealing Malik Harrison, low key here. He's a second to a third round prospect for me. The Rams desperately need linebacker. I think they look for a little more speed and coverage ability, but Malik Harrison moves pretty rare at his size, and he can kind of stabilize that linebacker position. They can worry about the elite, cover guy like a Corey Littleton later. That room right now is just a mess at linebacker. Then the Detroit Lions, they kind of did this to themselves, letting the right side of their line go and then basically just replacing it with Haloti Vaitai. I mean, come on. They need some more talent there. We're going to grab Robert Hunt, who's a flexible right tackle, can play guard. Kind of like Cody Ford coming out last year. Not the quickest guy, not the best athlete, but just really strong, can definitely play guard or tackle. And I actually imagine him starting day one and potentially being a better player than Haloti Vaitai, who they're now paying $10 million. The Buffalo Bills at pick 86, Jalen Reagor here, a guy that I do think needs to sit and develop, but John Brown, getting up there in age, has been a guy that's missed time over the course of his career. Also, Cole Beasley, not the long-term answer here. Good slot wide receiver, but Jalen Reagor can be a little bit of both. Be that deep threat, be a slot guy, be a fourth wide receiver here in 2020, but a guy with a ton of upside that I'm not very high on. But this would be a great fit because Josh Allen can utilize that speed. I think if he loses a little weight, he came in the combine a little heavy. I do think he's faster than that 4.48 that he ran. this could be a pretty dynamic fit here where he could work out. Then we got the New England Patriots at 87. Cole Kmet. You just got to have a tight end here. It's about where I have Cole Kmet going. I don't think he's ever going to be an elite player. Maybe can be like a Kyle Rudolph, but they need a tight end real bad. Then the New Orleans Saints. Going to grab another Ohio State corner here, Damon Arnett. Kind of an insurance plan here. The Saints are one of these teams that realizes you need four or five, really solid cover guys that you can trust. And they've lost some guys. They need to fill that depth chart back out. You can do that here in the third round with Damon Arnett out of Ohio State. Then the Cleveland Browns, one of the picks they got for moving down in the first round. And this is a guy that not a lot of people have heard of, but he's one of my sleepers in this class. Tristan Jackson, a true deep threat out of Syracuse. He showed that speed at the combine. He's got a clean release, and he can kind of, fake you out running slants. He's almost identical to me to Darius Slayton, who has a quick release, scares you enough with that deep threat, but then can stem it into a slant. And he's a pretty one-trick pony, but when you have Odell Beckham and Jarvis Landry, just to have to deal with a slant and a go ball on the outside every play, that's enough to really keep defenses honest. And I think this is an excellent fit. Baker throws a really good deep ball, and to kind of have that extra option out there would really fully round out this offense. So check out Tristan Jackson if you aren't familiar. I think this is a perfect fit for the Cleveland Browns. Then the Houston Texans going to grab Isaiah Hodgins. They've got their three starters. Something that they're really going to be missing, I think, with DeAndre Hopkins, though, is the chemistry that he had with Deshaun Watson when the play broke down. I look at Isaiah Hodgins, not an elite athlete, but actually kind of similar athleticism to DeAndre Hopkins. But a guy that when that play breaks down, he is one of the smartest players in this class with some of the best pairs of hands. I actually compare him, it's a little bold, but to Adam Thielen. Play style, just runs great routes and has excellent hands. So in the third round, he's not the fastest guy, but I do think they're missing kind of that size, heady player that they had in Hopkins. I think Hodgins can maybe offer that as a starter here in year one. Then the Packers, this pick was acquired from the Raiders in a pick swap. Going to grab Khalik Hudson, a cover linebacker out of Michigan, going to come in and compete with Oren Burks, and that's basically it. I mean, you got Kirksey there at linebacker. Martinez is gone, so whatever they rolled out there was going to be an automatic upgrade anyway, but this is a legitimate upgrade to the room that they desperately need to fill. Then the Baltimore Ravens going to grab Jordan Brooks, filling out that defensive depth chart. They got LJ Fort, who stepped up and played pretty well. Baltimore values bigger, thumping linebackers. Jordan Brooks can be that. They can coach some coverage instincts into him as well. That is his big weakness. Tennessee Titans going to grab Jonah Jackson. PFF actually has this guy as a fringe first-round pick. I'm not quite there on him. I think he might profile as just a guy, but he could be a starting caliber player. That right side of the offensive line is a massive question mark for me with Jack Conklin gone. I'm not a big believer in Nate Davis, a third-round pick last year. So I do think this Titans offensive line was such a big part of what they did last year, and they don't want to compromise losing that entirely. Jonah Jackson can be a really nice insurance piece there. Then Green Bay at pick 94. This one's going to surprise some people. I'm going to take Anthony McFarland. I love Aaron Jones, but he has had injury questions over the course of his career. I know he stayed healthy last year, but if anything happens to him, Green Bay is one of those teams that actually really values that speed outside zone running back, mirroring that Kyle Shanahan scheme. And there's a reason they have Matt Breida, Raheem Mostert. They just, figured out a way to keep Jerick McKinnon there. San Francisco, Kyle Shanahan, they understand that these running backs, they get hurt, but they need that speed to the edge, and Jamal Williams doesn't offer that at all. Anthony McFarland can be that for the Green Bay Packers. He's actually not unlike Aaron Jones as a running back. Very raw. But the other thing is Aaron Jones' contract is coming up, and I don't know if Green Bay wants to pay him. They're lucky that he hasn't held out as of this moment, but I think this kind of outside zone running back is a much bigger need in Green Bay than a lot of Packers fans might realize. Then the Denver Broncos, definitely a luxury pick. They've had a great draft, a great offseason to this point. Broncos fans are going to just slay me for this, but we're going to take Jacob Eason. I'm not a big Jacob Eason fan at all. I don't think he's going to be all that good. I think he's probably Mason Rudolph, but you never know with these guys. He's really only started 1 year effectively. you could have something here. And I think Drew Lock could work out, but you've put such a good roster in place. What if Drew Lock just sucks? Don't you want someone to turn to and have some hope? Like, I don't think there's a whole lot of picks here that are going to really help you fill out this roster. You've already done such a great job. Jacob Eason has that upside. He's everything that John Elway ever looks for in quarterbacks. That big, strong-armed white dude, frankly. If nothing else, he can be a good quality backup if anything happens to Drew Lock. You know, some Broncos fans might see the reasoning there. Other Broncos fans are just going to see it as a wasted pick. I actually think it's a good investment. The value of a quarterback position is really big, and he can kind of come in here and compete and develop. Maybe you flip him for a second-round pick in 2 years. Who knows? Then the Kansas City Chiefs, Zach Moss. Comparison for me is Kareem Hunt. Perfect fit here. You know, either going to start or split reps with Damian Williams. But yeah, just a great pick. I love Zach Moss. I think he'd be a great player here for the Chiefs. The Cleveland Browns, this is another name. So we're taking a couple guys that are a bit, ballsy or sleepers or reaches here. Ironically, both times with the Browns, but Jashawn Cornell. My comparison for him is Danico Autry. He did not get a combine invite. I don't understand why. He popped to me on tape. He's actually fairly similar to Draymond Jones, who was a third-round pick for the Broncos last year. His departure is what let Cornell fill into his role as that 6'3", 285-pound explosive interior rusher. My comparison, Danico Autry can be a pass rusher on third downs on the interior. You brought in Andrew Billings, but you could really use some interior push to round out that pass rush. Again, check this guy out. The dude's explosive. Then the New England Patriots with the 98th pick. So they lost their kind of hybrid edge guys. Van Noy is a Dolphin. Jamie Collins is a Lion. That's a big part of this defense, and luckily enough for them, and Bill Belichick may have had the foresight for this, this is one of the best hybrid edge outside linebacker classes maybe ever. We already had Zach Bond go, but Josh Uche is the pick, and then I'll spoil it here in 2 picks when the New England picks again. It's going to be Carter Coughlin. We're going to double up, hit on at least one of these guys, if not both. Both guys can rush the passer, drop in coverage, really smooth athletes, would be just a plug and play filler for the Patriots in big positions of help for that defense. Then the Giants at pick 99. Look, Blake Martinez is their number 1 linebacker right now. That's not going to cut it. I know Gettleman believes in the guy, but you need someone that can actually, be capable of being on the field on third down and cover players out of the backfield and cover tight ends. Davian Taylor, linebacker out of Colorado, really good athlete. Bit of a safety linebacker hybrid. He doesn't need to be a 3-down player here, but someone that can relieve Blake Martinez of his duties on obvious passing downs. We just had Carter Coughlin to New England, and then Seattle at pick 101, going to grab Raekwon Davis, can be a little bit of an edge, be an interior defensive lineman. Both needs, definitely kind of that flexibility that the Seahawks need. After we went offensive line a bunch, we're going to go defensive line here for the Seahawks. Then the Pittsburgh Steelers, we're going to take Bryce Huff. So we've got 3 kind of sleeper prospects here. Tristan Jackson, we had Jashawn Cornell. Now Bryce Huff did not get a combine invite, but this guy is everything that they have right now in Bud Dupree, who they just used the franchise tag on. Full speed ahead, leverage, inside, get off, power rush in a nutshell. Doesn't do everything super well, but that is one thing that he excels at. It is a valuable trait that Bud Dupree showed where that value can come in last year. So you get the long-term replacement there to Bud Dupree potentially. Then the Eagles at 103. We've been pretty aggressive to this point. We're going to slow things down a little bit, take a very secure player here in Kayvon Wallace, who's probably going to be a low-end starter at safety. A big need for this team. They've kind of lost a lot of pieces in this secondary. They're going to try out Jalen Mills at safety. We don't know how that's going to go. Bring in another body here to compete. I think could be a really good strong safety for this team. Then we got the Rams at 104. Javelin Guidry. Nickel Roby Coleman's gone. That undersized 5'8" corner who was a freak athlete they actually really used well. Javelin Guidry can just take his place. He's, to me, one of the best slot corners in this class, if not the best. A little more comfortable in zone, but he does have the athleticism to run man here with the Rams. I think he can do that. If not, you do have David Long to play in the slot as Javelin develops. The dude's a freak. I think the Rams will probably have their eyes on this guy, as the Rams are one of, I would say, about 10 to 12 teams in the league that are willing to play 5'9" corners, and Javelin Goodry could be one of the best 5'9" corners in the league in a year or two. Then the Minnesota Vikings at pick 105. We have yet to draft an offensive lineman. They kind of have some starters in place, but they need one more guy, especially on the interior, to compete this year. Ben Bredesen out of Michigan. It's not ideal, but I feel pretty good about emerging with two starting caliber players between Pat Elflein, Drew Samia, and now Ben Bredesen. And then the last pick here, the Baltimore Ravens going to grab Herbert Igbinoghene. They trade away Hayden Hurst, who was kind of that speed threat, that backup tight end to Mark Andrews. This team ran a lot of 3 tight end, or at least rotated 3 tight ends quite a bit. Igbinoghene is a very raw guy, and I want to see him run block better, but I do think the Ravens can utilize that speed very well off of play action and everything they do in this kind of deceptive offense. You add the speed in the middle of the field with Albert O and Chase Claypool. You're welcome, Ravens fans, and I'm sorry to the rest of the NFL. Good luck covering that. So I know that got long. I got super passionate about this mock draft. I think every single pick here makes a ton of sense. I hope you guys agree. There's going to be disagreement here and there, but I hope you enjoyed. I hope you learned a thing or two. Hit that like button down below if you did. Cheers as always, guys, and we'll see you for the next one. Peace.